So welcome again to our, the seventh learning lunch of Agile People Romania community. And we have a special guest as always, but this time is a very, very special guest. It's Lisanne Metz from Germany. I'm going to very briefly introduce her, and then I'm giving the floor to Lisanne, and she will be telling us about her experiences with fair pay and transparent compensation system. A very yummy topic, right? For our lunch today, but we will see. So very, very briefly, how I met, or we met. We were part of the same mentoring program, the EIC Women Mentoring program, this year's cohort, where Lisanne is one of the most enthusiastic, I was looking for the word, the most enthusiastic young COO in Europe, in a very powerful and a very challenging company as well. And she will be telling us more about herself and her role and how she managed to turn her job into a passion, I think, right? Thank you, Lisanne, for joining us. And let's see, how about yourself, and why fair pay, and why transparency, and why are we here together?
Thank you so much for the nice introduction already. And you said it right away. So I really turned my profession into passion with that one, because also to give you a bit more about my background, I started in an industry as an HR generalist. And then the topic job creating and compensation did come up, and they did ask, hey, who would be interested in such a topic? And somehow I was like, oh, that sounds interesting. And I really found my passion into it because of two sides of the things. Of course, it's quite a really, really strategic topic in companies, which sometimes is even underestimated, because if people hear compensation, they are thinking admin, payroll, and so on. And secondly, of course, it's quite purpose-driven, because I think it's so important that company do pay their people fairly and really equally as well. So that's how I turned really my profession into passion. And I did meet Philip with our job grading startup, where we really have the mission to enable HR to really be owner of their compensation processes.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We are an Agile people community, meaning that we are focusing on agility, and we are interested in everything related to people centricity. And in my honest opinion, if we were to change just one process, and that process will enable people working more collaboratively, more engaged, I think that would be the compensation process. So this is a very welcome discussion, and we are looking forward in understanding more about your perspective on the topic. Thank you again.
You're welcome. So I'm starting with my with a short introduction, also why it is so important as well. So you already said it, okay, it's so important that we are doing really compensation also for Agile organization. And why is that? So first of all, if you take a look at the evidence side of things, we see a lot of studies that fair pay and good compensation systems result in high job satisfaction of the employees, which of course for organization should be really, really important, because job satisfaction has an influence on retention and commitment of the employee, and in the end also on their performance, of course, because if I'm satisfied with my job, I will also perform quite better. So this is the evidence side of things. Secondly, we also do see right now, and this has started, I think, 1 year ago, that this topic is also becoming more and more important in the public. So here you just see an example of an article of Forbes that they're saying, okay, equal pay for equal work, fair pay, there should be a compensation system, and so on. So we see also the public eye is on that. Thirdly, and this is one thing which has been changing during the last year, we do have a new legislation in place as well, which will, of course, also have some consequences for different organizations. This is the European Equal Pay Directive. This directive has several consequences also how we will deal in future with compensation, because we do have a new framework here as well. And that's why also more and more companies are getting to get a bit more familiar, okay, how to structure their compensation, and should also do it. How this directive is directly influencing the compensation system in future, I will also give you an overview about that one in 1 minute. Today, I would like to guide you about like a best practice lesson, how a compensation system can be really built up, and really show you from a practical point of view, what would be the step to go for a compensation system, so that you have an idea later on, okay, how can I build up a compensation system in my company, also specific for the agile organizations and so on, so that you really know what to do next if you are interested in that one. Basically, you see here 5 different steps which I did define. So like in the best practice thing. So first of all, we do have like the organization analysis and philosophy, job descriptions, job grading, comp structuring, and also change management as part of the project. I will go in detail through each step so that you have an idea of what are behind it. And one thing also for you, if you have any comments or questions during my explanations, please feel free to always interrupt me and ask the questions, or also write them into the chat. I'm happy to discuss everything with you. First of all, we do have here the organization analysis and philosophy. And this is one step, and it sounds a bit, okay, why should I do it at the first thing? It's quite theoretical. No, but this is so important to do this at the beginning, to first understand really the organization. Because every organization is kind of different. And as I said at the beginning, compensation is a quite strategic topic. So first of all, we need to understand how the organization is built up. Are we speaking, for example, about an agile organization? And there would be like a focus more on a functional career, because we are more a flat organization and not like the hierarchical organization as well. We would need another approach as well for our whole project planning, because we would involve different stakeholders here as well. So this would be really one thing which is quite important, especially for such organizationals.
I have a question about, let's say, agile organizations versus more traditional ones.
Yeah.
Do you think it's easier to work with this type of organization, or it's the same? Compensation, it's the same difficult topic in every entity.
I think the thing about hierarchical organizations is more like in the difference to project management, because you have more a person who's on top and is deciding. This is what it's making a bit easier from a project management organization perspective. But for the other steps, it's nearly the same, honestly. It's just other roles which we are having here.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. So that's one about like the organizational structure. So we need to think about, okay, how can we structure the project? We are emphasizing more the functional career path here for agile organization. And of course, if you see in the right-hand corner, we would also might be having, of course, other stakeholders here as well in flat organizations, because we need to involve a bit more stakeholders. than in really hierarchical organization, where sometimes it's just like, okay, we do have a managing director, he's deciding everything, nice, go. Then, and this is like one thing which I will explain in detail, is are the compensation principles and legal requirements which we need to take a look at. The compensation principles need to be defined beforehand as well, because you need to ask yourself, okay, how do I want my compensation system to be? What are the principles behind it? How do I want to pay my people? This is one question which needs to be asked really at the beginning. And of course, I'm really interested also in your opinion about that. So I would ask you to scan the QR code or go to Mentimeter directly and type in the code and just type in some bullet words. What do you think would be good compensation principles from your perspective, so that we are having an idea about that one as well, what the community is thinking here.
Or if you cannot go to the Menti, because I see some of you on the phone, just write in the chat.
Yeah, that would be fine. Yeah.
I see a lot of people that are experienced with Kampen here. So definitely we should have a discussion and not a monologue from Lisanne.
Yeah, I'm always happy to have discussions. So if you have any thoughts about any points, go ahead. Just taking a look how the Menti is looking. Answers are coming in. So we do have fairness, transparency, ease of implementation, non-discrimination as well, which is also related to fairness, of course, as well. We do have fair pay. Still waiting, and we do have also something in the chat here as well.
Yeah, Rizvan is saying that compensation should be competitive. So we should take into consideration benchmarking.
Yeah, especially in these times of the year which we are having right now with high inflation and everything. Of course, it's a really important point, I think, which you did raise up here. Transparency is getting more and more bigger. Market positioning is like on the same as well, also based on performance standards, Rasmus did say as well. Yeah, this is like really a good point which you did raise up here, as because also from my point of view it is important to connect the compensation system later on also with performance management, so that you are taking account later on also the performance of the individuals, because of course this should be a factor as well. But sometimes compensation systems are not performance based. For example, if we do have like the tariff system in Germany, which is totally not flexible and also not performance based, and this is really a restriction for the companies, of course. And if we do like a comp system for agile organizations, normally we would include the connection with performance management. Okay, internal equity, company values, comp ben reflect what a company values. Also a really good point as well, because of course, if you have defined the company values, and normally this is quite a lot of work in the company to really define what a company is standing for, you should also include this in the whole HR processes. And one of them, of course, is comp. Of course.
I have a question about startups. Startups usually are, let's say, bootstrapped, or at least operate on not so big amount of money, and they cannot pay, maybe they cannot pay the market rate.
Yeah.
How do you manage that, taking into consideration all the other principles that are here?
Yeah, so you see, you have some principles like transparency, fairness, and so on. So this will be no issue to include us as well, because we can still do a compensation system transparent for startups. One thing which we might do in a startup, so, and normally all startups are doing that, they're not paying the market median for sure, if you take a look at the base salary, but they are working with equity quite a lot of times, or virtual shares or phantom shares, so that the employees are getting something if the startup is getting successful, which is involved then in their compensation story there as well. And also they are working with some benefits like remote work as well. Okay. Then we do have, so like the transparency right now is the star, which we are having here. And the others, I think we already did mention, and there we do have another one which we did not mention so far, and this was encourage teamwork. And this is really one of the things the company needs to decide for. Do they want to encourage teamwork? And this can be done later on also, for example, with a bonus system, which is driven by team results. Or do they want to drive individual performance or the whole company performance, where this would be more, for example, a bonus system would be more related to the whole company KPIs, if they're saying, okay, I'm just company and financial driven. So this is really one thing the company needs to decide for. Am I doing individual incentives, teamwork incentive, or do I want to combine everything? There's nothing wrong in compensation, and this is really I want to emphasize here. It's just important that the company is beforehand designing what they want to have. Because it's not wrong, but you need to ask the question at the beginning, what do you want? That you can really design a proper comp system. Well, okay, I think now we are good with the Mentimeter. Does someone has a comment about that as well, or further questions? Okay, then I'm going back to my presentation. And I just did pick out as well some best practice principles, which you almost mentioned everything. So we do have like, so this is like based on the project which I did with some companies and the principles which have been implemented quite a lot of times as well. One of them was, it is often fair and transparent. So exactly what you also did emphasize, nearly everyone would like to have a fair and transparent system, because they are saying they really would like to have a transparent career steps as well, and this connected with a compensation system. Then, and this was also the second one which you did mention, the organization. So it should be really reflect the organization's values and also the organizational structure, which is important, especially if we are speaking about different organizational forms as well here. Market orientation, the third point, you mentioned it as well. Sometimes for companies, it's just also important to have a market benchmark where they are standing and they're like, okay, we are sure we cannot pay the market median, but we just would like to also see where we are standing, and maybe we are deciding for the 25 percentile. Like, as I said at the beginning, it might be for startups. The fourth one is the standard, and you did not mention it, but it might be going in your head as well, because normally when a company is starting, they do not have a clear structure and they do not have clear compensation processes, and also how to deal with raises and so on. And this is also one of the principles which is already almost mentioned, which is like bringing order into chaos. I'm always calling this criteria. So this was the fun part, the compensation principles, because we can really think about everything. And now we are coming to the legal requirements. And these are always quite country specific. I just would like to give you an outlook on the Equal Pay Directive of the European Union. it's not translated into state law yet, so this will be happening into the next 3 years. So there will be also some change for European states, but just that you know what is going on then later. One of the things company need to do will be a reporting, and this will be a reporting of gender pay gap, meaning companies with more than 100 employees, and this will concern base salary and also total compensation. So right now we should already structure our com processes so that we can also go ahead and can report also the gender pay gap later on. Another part, and this is quite exciting, is that employees within the company, but also potential employees, so when we are in the recruiting processes, can demand information about the salary. In case there will be a legal complaint, the burden of proof lies within the employer. And this is a change, because beforehand we did have also some equal pay directives in the country, but the burden of proof was mostly at the employee. So the employee needed to prove, oh, I'm paid unequal. Now the employer needs to prove, I'm paying everyone equal. Change of things. If we do have really a gender pay gap, and this is also quite a really high change, because we have been doing the reporting, the information stuff, and so on. And if we do have then later on and see we do have a gender pay gap of more than 5%, a job evaluation needs to be carried out with employee representative. How a job evaluation will look like, I also did include it in my plan. I will also show you in 1 minute so that you have an idea what you can do as well. Important it is that it's an analytical job evaluation, just to say beforehand. Based on the job grading, the employers must also have pay bands in place to ensure that we have no discrimination. I also saw beforehand when we did the Mentimeter, this one of the point was, okay, no discrimination. And this is exactly what pay bands and also job grading exercise is doing. As I said, don't be panicked or anything. So right now it's like the equal pay directive. We do have now 3 years for each country to translate this into state law. But just that you have an idea what is going on, because this will change the compensation world quite a lot. Any questions?
I have a question, yes. Maybe I'm wrong, but I always thought that Germany, for example, already had some transparency laws. So you are like one step forward or already learning from the mistakes you did from the past. So how is the situation?
Yeah, so like there has been a law in Germany which was established in 2017, the pay transparency law. But the thing is really that we are always calling it's like a tiger without teeth, because it's more like a guideline. Of course, you have something like in reporting which you need to do, but nothing is really happening, honestly, if you have a gender pay gap. And of course, an employee can sue the employer, but as I said, the burden of proof lies with the employee and not with the employer, and this will also change there as well. So the new directive will be quite more strict, and there will be also quite a lot of more sanctions for companies in there, which is good, honestly speaking, because we still have a gender pay gap in Germany around 18%, so still have a problem. I think Romania, if I'm not wrong, is 5 or 4%, something around that. So quite below Germany right now. Any further questions or comments?
Just that I'm looking forward. Does it count?
Really good one. Great. Good. So we did speak about compensation principles and the legal requirements. We did really lay right now the base of everything. Now, to be really a fair system, we need to know, okay, what kind of positions do I have in my company? because I need to sort them somehow so that I can ensure that I'm really paying them fairly. And how do I do it? To really find out what are the positions and what are the roles and responsibilities. And I'm doing this whether with job interviews or with job descriptions. And I know this is not a fun task, honestly speaking, for HR normally writing job descriptions. But it's really core of such a compensation project, because we really need to find out what are the responsibilities and what are my key positions and how do I want to pay them. And especially if we are speaking about agile organizations. The job description clarifies always the roles and responsibilities of the roles. One thing which has been beforehand, and this is why a lot of HR people are like, oh my God, I hate job description, was that they were quite task oriented. So you had like 5 pages full of tasks, and it was quite such a lot of work to do them. And now we are going also because we are saying, okay, if I'm doing every detail of a job, then I can change the job description every 2 weeks. And we don't want to do that, especially if you're speaking about agile roles, because they are normally quite broad roles, which we are speaking about. The thing which needs to be done here is that we are speaking about a more task-oriented, responsibilities-oriented job description, not task-oriented anymore. So we are really thinking about 5 to 6 responsibilities, can be quite broad, so that we can define what are the responsibilities and see what the positions are actually doing. One hint from my side, use AI for really doing job descriptions if you have not done it yet in your company, because these are really a great base for defining the roles and responsibilities of a job. And these job descriptions will be later on also important for career frameworks, not only for compensation, because we can also define in there, hey, what differs, for example, an intermediate expert from a senior expert, and so on, that we can really define the differences in there as well and give it to the employee and say, okay, you are not there yet. I need you to do that more, then you can go to senior position. The job description, and normally if you have like an organization with, I think so, over 500 employees, this would take quite a while if you have nothing there yet. 2 to 3 months, I think. Then afterwards, we can do a job creating exercise. And why do we need that? A job creating is always based on the requirements of the job. So we do have standardized factors, which we always do evaluate. And then we are sorting then the jobs into a so-called job grade. And you can see this here. There we do have like the grades, which are going from 19 to 6. And we did sort in the jobs based, as I said, on a standardized job evaluation. So we did take a look, for example, what kind of education does the position needs? What kind of experience? What kind of tasks are fulfilled? So it's always, the factors are always quite a bit different based on the job grading systems which we are using, but it's always like looking at different factors, and then the result is a number which you are getting there, so that you can really see, okay, what are my key jobs? How do I structure? Is my organization structures and so on? Because you do need it, of course, if you want to pay people fairly, to first of all see what are the responsibilities and everything. Now we can also build up then career frameworks within the job grading exercise, and this is one thing that you can see here as well. That as an example for the compensation benefits, we do have an analyst, then we do have a specialist, expert, senior expert, for example. So this is also one way to structure career paths then later on in your compensation. Just to show you an example as well, how career paths can be looking as well. Later on, you can see here a so-called generic grade map. So we do have on the right-hand side the management career paths, then on the in the middle the project management, on the left-hand side the individual contribution. If we are speaking about really agile organization, we are quite focused on the individual contribution career path because our experts are really important here, and also the functional guidance of the discipline and everything. So this would be really one of the key components. Project management sometimes as well, because project management is also quite important in agile organization. Management career path, you still will have some management positions in there, but the focus would be really on the other two for sure. For the job grading systems, there are so many on the market. For if you are speaking about agile organization, it's just important that you take a look. Okay, are the factors of the job grading systems really fitting to the organization as well?
I have a question related to the EU transparency rules. What do you expect they will really impact in the market? Do we need to, I don't know, acquire new knowledge of what, how to perform the grading, how to discuss with people related to transparency of the salaries, or what would be the real life impact of that rule?
So the real life impact of the EU directive will be that job grading and evaluation will be even more important than it is right now, because as it said, it's required of the companies if they do have a gender pay gap of more than 5%, and this is normally always the case. So I've been to 2 companies right now from over 100 who had like a gender pay gap under 5%, which was unadjusted. And this is meaning that, of course, the knowledge needs to be built up about job grading so that you get more knowledge. Okay, what is job grading as well? And that you prepare yourself as well, so that you already think about when you're building up that you're first putting in a job grading as well, which is quite important. Of course, you can hire a consultancy to do everything, but I would not recommend that for sure. Because the problem is, if you are doing that, you need to explain it later to the manager. And this is the easiest case if you have done this by yourself, of course. So I would recommend just to really get the knowledge, get a training about job evaluation and so on, so that you have an idea about that one. Because I'm always a fan of enablement, of the enablement of HR. Right.
If I may, excuse me, and very important to train the people managers.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're very scared because they do not understand the criteria. They do not know exactly how to explain them to their people, to their teams. So that is why they probably are reluctant and do not open the subject.
Yeah.
So they need a lot of training.
Exactly. So like it's like the whole thing is also like a change management process, of course, as well. And so you need to involve the people, get them training so that they can also explain it, and that you also have an acceptance, of course, from the organization about the whole process. Great. Then I'm going ahead with the fun stuff. I'm always talking it like that because we have done organization analysis, job description, job grading, and now we are coming to the comp structuring. And this is based always on the result of the job grading. Because, and this is like just one graph which I'm showing you here, we do have the job grades, which you can find here, which are going in this case from 1 to 15, and you see the dots, and these are just exemplary employee salary. For comp structuring, we first need to analyze where we are right now with the salaries of the employees, of course, so that we have an overview. We see, for example, at grade 9 or 10, we do have some outliers here. Don't know what happened with them, but they were really happy. But this is quite important that first of all, we are taking a look at the internal structure of how we are paying the people. Then if we want to do for cost structuring, we can also put some market data above, which we see here as well as one of the lines. This is like the market median of our salary study to see where the market is paying. So we can take a look of the internal pay structure and the external pay structure. Sometimes, and also in this case, this quite differs because I'm paying quite lower than the market. It's not bad, it's just like one thing which you just first realize. And the question is really, does the organization want to pay like the market, or are they saying, okay, from the base salary, we are not paying market-wise, but we are having great benefits for our employees, or we do have, for example, also quite a flexibility how they can work with each other. The most important thing when you're designing the pay bands is really defining also how much can it cost. This sounds a bit, but it's really quite important that you also keep it in mind that when you're doing a compensation project, this will not be for free. It's normally costing always a bit because you will always have some outliers, and you will have some outliers above. About the outliers above, no problem, so they get a pay freeze. Also quite tough sometimes for organization, but this would be the best way how to deal with them. For the outliers below, you need to put them into the pay bands. Otherwise, why did you do the whole project? And for this, you need to ask also the managing directors and everyone, okay, how much is it allowed to cost? Because you also always need to keep it in mind. Cost is one of the aspects, of course, of compensation.
I have a question also here. I'm, let's say, a fan of empowering people and involving them in decision making, in transparent discussions, good or bad, and so on. Do you recommend this pay band discussion to be made together with the people, or what should be the group of employees that would be hands-on in deciding on this?
Yeah, so like for like the cost would be one thing I would need to clarify with the managing directors in front up. So this would be just with them normally because they are like the cost people, and about the whole design of the payment. So if we are thinking about, for example, do we would like to put in a bias that we are a bit steeper when we are going to higher grades, for example, or to the lower grades, I would involve some employee representative. So not like a big group of 100 people, so maybe just 5, 2 or 3 from the managing team. And of course, also like the managing director needs to see them as well, because this is, as I said, quite strategic. But I would have like to do like an open discussion with such groups so that everyone is feeling involved into that one as well.
And
So
another question, coming back to the agile approach of experimenting, iterating, checking if it fits right, and then repurposing the solution. How often do you recommend to look at the pay bands? Do we settle them now and they are like this forever, or?
No, and so like you are setting them now and you are adapting them each year based on market budgets and so on, what you are having, and you're really taking a look at the redesign each 2 years. So for each year you are doing something with them, because of course we need to adapt them to the market rises and so on, but redesign at least every 2 years to have a look at that. And also for each year, you need to take a look at your job grading, if this is still valid. This is quite important, especially in agile organization, because it can be that the role, of course, completely changed. Can be the case. So maybe the job grade isn't right anymore because you have gained quite a lot of more responsibilities in the role. So this is really also key for a good job architecture.
If I may go back a bit with regards to the outliers, especially the ones who pay more. There have been cases in Romania, companies that wanted, big companies, they wanted to penetrate the market and get the best talent. And what they did actually is, if you get 50% more than what you get now, or double, can we speak about comp and ben strategy? I guess no. So it's like you ruin the whole market, and there have been such cases.
Yeah,
which is quite a big issue.
Yeah, especially about tech. I heard also that some companies, for example, in Germany, did hire someone in Romania, just that they're located because they're still cheap for Germany, but of course they're paying much more higher than the Romanian market because they are more German salary. So I heard also about such cases.
Okay. Thank you.
Sorry. It wasn't me. No, but you're right. So this is like one of the issues which we are, of course, having. The thing to tackle this, of course, is still maybe defining the pay bands a bit broader as well. So this is like one thing which I still always recommend, that we are not speaking about a really thin pay range or anything like that, so that we are really having options to move them up and down, and that we are having, for example, the hot jobs in the last percentile of the pay bands. So this would be one thing to deal with it. But of course, if you have like a company in Germany who's like totally interrupting the market or something like this, it just can be the case that you're saying, okay, I cannot hire the person as well. This can be one of the things, but it's an issue for sure, especially with the work flex and everything. Just to show you what you can do later on as well. So we have done like the comp structuring, and based on that one, you can also do the gender pay gap reporting. So on the left-hand side, you see the so-called unadjusted gender pay gap. So there I'm taking just salary of men, salary of women, and I'm not taking into account the relative value of the jobs. So we can see, okay, women earn 21% less. But is this really true? Because we are not taking a look, okay, are the women more in accounting or in commercials or like lower level jobs? If we take a look, and it's like exactly the same data on the right-hand side, we are running a regression analysis. And this is the so-called adjusted gender pay gap. There we are taking into account the job grade of a position and also some other control variables, like, for example, if age has an impact, or if the global job family, so if they are in accounting or engineering, does have an impact on their pay. And if you take a look, we are going from 21% to 2.5%, which is quite a difference. We still might be having an issue here for sure, because we do have the issue that we do not have really a lot of women in higher paid job grades. But another solution than paying the women more, but because it's more about fostering and empowering women so that they can get into higher level grades. Lastly, and you already said it, and this is, I think, one of the most important parts, which is normally quite underestimated in organization. And this is going not only at the last point, but going through the whole process. And for me, it was really important to say something about that one here as well, is the change management, which you are having in such a process. You need really involve the management and also the employees during the whole project. And this is meaning maybe being part of the job grading team, that you're saying, okay, I'm grading with employees and managers together so that they really feel involved what I am doing here right now, and that they do and already understand it, because this will make it much more easier for you to have an acceptance later on of the whole job grading into the organization. And of course, also giving all the information to the other employees always during the projects. So of course, involved in the team, but also give the others employees where we are standing right now, what are the next steps, so that they know, okay, what is going on right now, and really be transparent about everything. It's funny because we already talked about that a few minutes ago, the job creating and compensation training for people managers. So after we've done a whole, a whole job creating exercise, there will be needed that there are individual talks between managers and employees, so that the employees know, okay, where is my position in my new job grade? What are the impacts of that? And how can I, for example, go to the next level? And this will be like really a one-on-one talk. And HR cannot do all the one-on-one talk. We don't want to do that, because otherwise we are just doing that all the day. And it's quite important also that this is coming from people managers as well, so that they really do know, okay, this is how it's going. In my experience, it is really like that the key for success of a compensation project is really communication and training. And sometimes organizations are, after we did design the comp structure, and oh, I'm done, and I'm always like, no, you're not done. You still need to do something because you did a nice comp structure and a good job grading, but it does not help you if the organization is saying no to that, because we really need them to accept it, of course. Otherwise, it does not make sense. Yeah.
That is why the earlier you involve them in the process, the less likely they are to resist the process and the implementation.
Exactly, because they are responsible also for the results. So it's like one thing.
It was your idea, didn't you say that? So how can you reject it now?
Yeah, I don't know about Germany or other countries you are working with, but my perspective is that Romanian people do not like to talk openly about money. It's a taboo topic. People don't know how to position themselves in salary negotiation discussion. So maybe that transparency regulation could support opening up about it or not.
Exactly. It should be opening about it. And we do have like exactly the same in Germany. So you don't talk about your salary right now. So it's more like hidden, just like one trend which we are having right now, that startups are right now publishing their pay bands and everything. But this is like also a new trend which has started, I think, 1 year ago. So that they said, okay, we are really transparent. We would like our employees to know, but this is just for startups. We do have other countries which are quite more far than us, like the UK, where you need to publish the pay range, for example, already on job advertisements. So where it's quite more open. They are not in the European Union, so for them it will not change anything. But I think for a lot of European countries, this will have a major impact.
Actually, in Romania, it's very easy for blue collars to share their salaries. They always do. And it's more difficult with white collars.
Mm.
Have you noticed this in Germany?
No, so for us, it's
okay.
For everyone, honestly speaking, except you are in a tariff system. So the a union agreement, then it's quite clear because everywhere it is published. So you can also talk about it, but otherwise, no, not in the companies. Yeah, unfortunately, but hopefully this will change. I'm already done also with the presentation. So I would be really happy to also answer more questions or to have a discussion with you.
I have a question. I'm curious how this will go with the EU regulations and the impact it will have on Romania. what I see working in IT is that young people are more open to speak about their level of salary. So Gen Z is running the show, I think, at this moment. And also they are collecting information from the international environment. And well, sometimes that's not necessarily realistic, because if somebody gets a very high paid job, it doesn't mean everybody will. But except for encouraging people to self-evaluate at the right level, and of course encouraging equal pay for men and women, what do you feel, maybe, because you spoke about the tiger without teeth in Germany, so you can't really say you're experimenting the system already, but at least you have a framework that we don't yet. What else can we expect? What do you think?
I think and as I said, the tiger without teeth will change for sure as well in Germany and also in other countries, because it's also getting, so we do have the EU directive as one of the points, of course, and this will have an impact because it's a law for sure, but it's also how the topic is coming more and more up in the society. I think this is one thing, because as you said, Gen Z, the new generation, is demanding it a bit more. And it's really one of those things, and I've just saw a study, when an employee chooses for an employer, is like one of the things is really pay transparency, because they feel treated fairly. And this is one thing which will be coming more and more up, because more and more companies will be doing that. And as I said, Germany is starting right now with the startups. I think the old companies, I'm calling it the old one, the big automotive companies and so on, they will take a time until they are there, but the trend is really starting here as well, which is quite good, I think, because I think it's really, really important, not like the market orientation or anything like this, but more like the fair pay, so that people are really paid fairly in organizations.
See how that goes. For us, at least.
Great.
Hello.
I
have a question. Do you think, like you said, for manager, we need to train the managers. Do you think it's important to train also the employees before to show them all the pay levels, to come a little bit early with a training for them, and after that they will see the salary ranges?
I would give and this is like one thing where we also, of course, need to take a look how the organization is and what is the result of the pay bands and everything, because this is also one thing which I need to say. It might be not like that you're doing the exercise and you can publish the pay bands, because sometimes the company needs 1 or 2 years to get into the system as well. So about the training, I think it's really important to train the managers for sure, with a deep dive training, because they also need to get like the individual explanations to the employees, and to have like, I don't know if it's really a training or more like a really short training, but you can say like maybe 1 or 2 hours to give them information. What are the factors behind the methodology? What will change? Show them how they can work then later on, where they are located in the pay bands, and so on.
Actually, we are doing this with managers, but I want to know your thoughts about doing training with employees, to tell them what is the limit for employees, to tell them the philosophy, and to increase the engagement, and for them to see that we are doing the right things, and we are looking in the market, we are looking all over to prepare a fair pay for them. And for employees, it's important. I know that it's important, but in practice, do you saw this type of trainings for employees?
And good question. And it's depending a bit on the culture of the company. So how open do you want to work with the pay bands and the compensation system? And I think normally you should work quite openly. And then I think the training can support that quite well. If you want to publish the pay bands and everything, do you want to publish them?
Not now, but in the future we should.
Yeah, and this is like then, and this is really important then, because
this is a pre-preparation for employees to understand, and after that they can see the
exactly. And then I think it's important just like to do a training, but with the content which is now important for them, for sure. To really define what they need to know, because honestly speaking, it's not a simple thing to understand. So we really also need to limit somehow the
yes, of course,
information, and then give them the information where you say, okay, this can be simply explained and they will understand it, and this will really help them. And that's fine. And for the managers, you're getting the deep dive training. So if they have any problems or anything like this, they can go there and ask them, and really also get the employees to get the idea of the system, and that this will help them as well. I think this is really one of the important things.
Yes. The question was if you know if company are doing this, how is the so for employees? Yes.
Yeah. Okay. They're doing it partly, and so it's really depending, because sometimes you have companies who are just saying, okay, for the first year we are just taking it down to the managers and we are using it as an internal tool because we really need to move up, and it's 3 million which we need to pay. But if you have like the ideal case, they're doing it, and this is also what I'm recommending.
Good, thank you.
We have a good question here from Alexandra, talking about skills-based organization, where we move away from fixed jobs, roles, and we focus more on skills. So maybe we should start expecting salary surveys based on skills, or what? How do we measure this? How do we grade the roles?
Good question again. And this is like one thing which we are also seeing, that is quite a skill focused world which we are going in. For example, you also have for recruiting, you have now tools which are searching just for skills and not job profiles anymore. One thing about salary surveys, it will not change that you still will have roles in there. And somehow you still will have also roles in organization. Because you, of course, there will be a different role for engineering or like an operator, for example. So there will be still job profiles, but really, really broad job profiles in future, which I also did say, so that you are really broaden up there as well, and that you also include some soft skills in the job profiles as well, which are also role specific.
Thank you. I think we can take only one more question, and then we end this meeting. If there is another question here. If not, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing everything with us. How can we contact you? On LinkedIn? Can people add you on LinkedIn and follow everything you're doing?
Yeah, would be really happy. You can add me on LinkedIn, you can write me email, whatever you would like to do. If you're interested in getting to know more about the topic, feel free to contact me on any way. So really happy.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lisanne.
Thank you so much for the nice discussion.